The darkness swallowed everything. Sergeant James Miller could barely breathe, his hands trembling against the damp volcanic rock. Somewhere in the pitch-black tunnel network, Japanese soldiers were waiting. Each breath echoed like thunder. Sweat ran down his neck, mixing with the volcanic ash that coated his Marines' uniforms. They had entered these tunnels expecting a quick sweep. Now nothing was certain. The Battle of Iwo Jima was supposed to be another American victory, a strategic stronghold in the Pacific that would bring the war one step closer to its conclusion. But the Japanese had other plans. Beneath the island's surface, they had constructed an impossible maze over 11 miles of underground tunnels, reinforced with concrete, interconnected like a spider's web, designed to transform every inch of terrain into a potential killing ground. Sergeant Miller represented the 4th Marine Division, men trained for the most brutal combat imaginable. Yet nothing could have prepared them for what lurked underground. These weren't just tunnels. They were a living, breathing defensive system that would test the limits of human endurance and survival. On February 19, 1945, when the first Marines landed on Iwo Jima's black sand beaches, they encountered something unprecedented. The island wasn't just defended, it was a fortress engineered with terrifying precision by General Tadamichi Kurabayashi, a tactical genius who knew exactly how to turn geography into a weapon. Miller's unit had been tasked with clearing a section of tunnels near the island's northern region. Intelligence suggested a relatively straightforward mission: locate and neutralize any remaining resistance. Standard protocol. Clean and efficient, but nothing about Iwo Jima was standard. The tunnels themselves were engineering marvels. Carved into volcanic rock, some passages were barely 3 feet wide, requiring Marines to move single file, weapons pressed close to their bodies. Visibility was near zero. Temperature fluctuated between suffocating heat and sudden bone-chilling cold. Every step could trigger a trap. Every shadow might conceal a Japanese soldier waiting to strike. Miller remembered the bridge. These aren't just hiding spots, the intelligence officer had said. They're a complete underground city, command centers, hospital wards, storage facilities. The Japanese can fight, resupply, and relocate entirely underground. His team moved slowly. Private Rodriguez on point, Thompson bringing up the rear. Flashlights were too risky. They would only reveal their position. Instead, they relied on muscle memory, touch, and the faintest ambient light filtering through occasional ventilation shafts. A sudden scrape, metal against stone. Miller froze. Rodriguez stopped mid-step, one hand signaling for absolute silence. They had learned the hard way that sound traveled differently underground. A whisper could echo for hundreds of yards. A dropped piece of equipment could reveal their entire position. The Japanese defenders weren't just soldiers, they were ghosts, trained in tunnel warfare. They could move silently, set intricate traps, and disappear into the rock like specters. Some tunnels had false walls, others contained hidden machine gun nests. Many were rigged with explosives, ready to collapse entire sections and bury invaders alive. This wasn't conventional warfare. This was a three-dimensional chess match where the board itself was alive and oil. Miller's hand tightened on his Thompson submachine gun. One wrong move could mean instant death. The tunnel seemed to breathe around them, a living organism filled with potential violence. Something was coming. He could feel it. Something metallic clinked against the stone floor. Rodriguez's muscles tensed. Miller saw his point man's silhouette go completely rigid, right hand slowly raising two gers, the signal for potential immediate threat. The darkness wasn't just absence of light. It was tactile, thick, oppressive. Miller could taste volcanic dust and decades-old moisture, could sense the generations of violence compressed into these tunnel walls. Every centimeter of rock held memory, potential energy waiting to be released. Rodriguez's breath came in controlled, nearly imperceptible whispers. Thompson, behind Miller, had already chambered a round, the faintest mechanical click echoing softly against stone walls. Then they heard it. A scraping. Not random, deliberate. Something moving with precise, calculated movement. Not scrambling, not panicked. Controlled. Miller knew immediately this wasn't accidental noise. This was intentional communication. The Japanese defenders had sophisticated communication protocols. Hand signals, subtle sound patterns, rhythmic taps that carried messages through stone and darkness. This sound was a message, a warning, or perhaps a trap. Rodriguez's hand moved microscopically. Jers spread 5 potential directions of threat. Miller read the silent language instantly. Left tunnel branch, approximately 15 meters ahead. Potential multiple aisles. Thompson would later describe it as feeling the threat before hearing or seeing anything. A primordial sensation of predation. Something watching, calculating, waiting. The tunnel's temperature dropped suddenly. A draft from somewhere deep in the volcanic rock's hidden passages carried a scent of gunpowder, old leather, something metallic and sharp Miller couldn't immediately identify. A memory flashed the brig about Kuribayashi's tunnel systems, not just defensive positions, living networks, supply routes, communication highways, each tunnel connected to others in ways American intelligence could barely comprehend. Rodriguez took one deliberate half-step forward. His boot made no sound against the stone. Years of jungle and mountain training had transformed these Marines into something beyond conventional soldiers. They weren't just fighting men, they were living instruments of tactical precision. The metallic sound repeated, closer now. Miller realized it wasn't a random noise, it was methodical, like something being slowly, deliberately dragged across stone. A test, a probe, assessing their position, their reactions. Japanese tunnel tactics were legendary. They didn't just defend, they manipulated. They created psychological warfare in absolute darkness. Somewhere in the blackness ahead, something was moving with incredible patience, waiting, watching. Rodriguez's hand moved almost imperceptibly, fingers pointing, indicating a slight elevation change in the tunnel floor, a potential concealed position. Miller felt sweat trace cold paths down his spine. The tunnel wasn't just a physical space, it was a living organism, breathing, calculating, waiting to reveal its lethal secrets. The scraping continued, methodical, patient, like something sentient was testing the boundaries of their awareness, and then suddenly, absolute silence, which was far more terrifying than any sound. Miller's breath was a microscopic whisper against his respirator. The silence stretched, impossibly tense. Each heartbeat seemed to echo against the volcanic stone walls. Rodriguez's body was coiled steel muscle and sinew locked into perfect potential energy, ready to transform instantaneously from stillness to violent action. Something was changing in the tunnel's atmosphere, a subtle vibration, not sound, not movement, but a presence, like static electricity building before a thunderstrike. Miller's combat-trained senses registered minute alterations, microscopic dust particles suspended differently, air pressure shifting by fractions of millimeters. Rodriguez's left hand, masked, barely perceptible, traced a complex signal against his tactical vest. 3 quick micro-movements, a coded warning passed between veterans who understood language beyond words. Miller acknowledged with an almost imperceptible head tilt. The tunnel's geometry was deceptive. Kuribayashi's engineers hadn't just dug holes, they'd created 3-dimensional labyrinths that defied standard military mapping. Angles that seemed straight gradually curved. Passages that appeared dead-ended contained hidden transitions. Each meter was a potential ambush. The metallic scraping resumed. But different now, not dragging, not probing, something more deliberate, more intelligent. Like something was assembling. Rodriguez's pupils, barely visible beneath his tactical gear, had expanded. Not from fear, from pure predatory focus. Marines like him didn't just observe environments. They read them, decoded them, became part of their living architecture. A faint mechanical click echoed, barely audible. But in this absolute darkness, that single sound carried massive significance. Precision engineering. Japanese manufacturing tolerances. The sound of a mechanism being prepared, not random, not accidental, intentional. Miller's mind raced through Brigi details. Kuribayashi's defensive strategies. How the Japanese commander transformed Iwo Jima's volcanic rock into a living weapon system. Not just fortifications, not just tunnels, but an organism designed to resist, absorb, and ultimately destroy invading forces. The click repeated. Rhythmic now, a pattern emerging. Rodriguez's right hand almost imperceptibly adjusted his weapon's selector switch, from standard semi-automatic to 3-round burst. A tactical preparation that suggested he anticipated something beyond conventional engagement. The tunnel's temperature continued dropping. That draft Miller had noticed earlier carried more than just temperature variations. It carried information, scent molecules, subtle atmospheric changes that spoke of deeper movements happening beyond immediate perception. Something was aware of them. More importantly, something was preparing. The darkness wasn't just absence of light. It was a living presence, watching, calculating, each cubic centimeter charged with potential violence. Miller remembered the classified reports, how Japanese tunnel defenders had transformed psychological warfare into an art form. They didn't just fight, they manipulated perception itself, creating scenarios where enemies questioned reality before confronting physical threat. Another mechanical sound, closer now, deeply engineered, deeply intentional. Rodriguez's body remained motionless, but his muscles telegraphed pure potential, like a compressed spring waiting for precise moment of release. Years of training had transformed these Marines into something beyond conventional soldiers, living sensors, walking intelligence-gathering systems. The tunnel continued its patient revelation, waiting, watching, preparing. The mechanical sound resolved itself. A metallic unfolding happened 3 meters ahead, not sudden, methodical, like a precision instrument being activated by unseen algorithms. Rodriguez's breath was controlled, nearly invisible, stopped completely. Miller recognized the sound instantly. Japanese Type 100 submachine gun, but modified, retrofitted with something different, not standard military engineering. The weapon emerged from a hidden alcove carved directly into the volcanic stone, mounted on a sophisticated pivot mechanism that allowed near 360-degree rotation, no human operator visible. Autonomous, programmed, waiting. Rodriguez's muscle tension suggested he'd seen this before. Not surprise. Recognition, like encountering an old deadly adversary. The weapon's barrel swept methodically, infrared tracking, thermal signature detection, hunting patterns programmed into its mechanical DNA. Miller understood now. Kuribayashi hadn't just created defensive positions, he'd engineered living systems, mechanical organisms that could adapt, respond with inhuman precision. A soft pneumatic hiss accompanied the weapon's movements, barely perceptible, but laden with mechanical intention. Rodriguez's hand moved. Micromillimeter adjustments, not toward his own weapon, but toward a small cylindrical device attached to his tactical vest. Electronic countermeasure. The automated weapon continued its scanning pattern. Patient, methodical, waiting. Miller felt the temperature drop another 2 degrees. The tunnel's geometry seemed to compress, walls feeling closer, more alive. Rodriguez's device activated. A subtle electromagnetic pulse radiated outward. Invisible, precise. The mechanical weapon froze, not destroyed, temporarily neutralized. Movement, Rodriguez whispered. Single word, loaded with tactical significance. They would have approximately 47 seconds before the system reset and resumed its hunting pattern. 47 seconds to navigate past this sentinel. 47 seconds to survive. The darkness absorbed their presence. The tunnel breathed, waiting, watching. The next 3 meters would determine everything. Rodriguez moved first, liquid silence. Each step calculated, Nayo's weight distributed across boot treads to minimize sound detection. Miller followed, tracking Rodriguez's movements like a shadow. The neutralized weapon hung suspended in its mounting. Electronic circuits momentarily scrambled. But machines learn quickly. Adaptation was their fundamental programming. 32 seconds remaining. Rodriguez's hand signals were microscopic. Military sign language compressed into near imperceptible muscle twitches. Miller understood instantly. Bypass. Minimal engagement. Ghost protocol. They slipped past the automated weapon like water through molecular spaces. No contact. No disturbance. 20 seconds. A secondary sensor array flickered. Infrared lines crisscrossed their path. Invisible laser grids designed to detect even the slightest thermal differential. Rodriguez's adaptive camouflage absorbed and redistributed heat signatures. 15 seconds. Mechanical recalibration began. The weapons systems cycling, preparing to restart hunting protocols. Cold mathematical precision reawakening. 10 seconds. Miller felt the tunnel's geological memory. Volcanic rock. Centuries of pressure. Silent witness to countless human conflicts. This space was more than a corridor. It was a living memory system. 5 seconds. Rodriguez reached the tunnel's next intersection. Quantum decision tree unfolding in milliseconds. Left would expose them. Right offered concealment. 0. The weapon hummed back to operational status. Scanning. Hunting. But they were already gone. Silence returned. Mechanical sentinels resumed their patient vigil. The mountain absorbed their passage like a dream half remembered. Some stories are never fully told. Some battles exist only in the margins between detection and survival. The tunnel breathed, waiting for the next encounter. The next chamber opened like a wound in the mountain's flesh. Crystalline structures glinted along rough-hewn walls. Geological scars etched with mathematical precision. Rodriguez paused, infrared display flickering across his retinal interface. Miller saw it first. A quantum disruption. Something shifting at the molecular level. Not mechanical. Not human. Something else. The air changed. Density shifted. Pressure waves that carried no sound but tremendous information. Rodriguez's cybernetic implants began to cascade, warning signals bleeding across neural networks. "We're not alone," Miller whispered.
Not a question.
A statement of immutable fact. The mountain's heart beat. Slow. Deliberate. Ancient rhythms older than human technological conception. Deeper than mechanical understanding. Rodriguez's hand moved imperceptibly. Weapon charged. Quantum state energy coils humming with potential destruction. But destruction against what? The chamber breathed. They were being observed. Not by machines. Not by humans. Something in between. Something emerging. Miller felt the first quantum resonance before it manifested. A presence that was simultaneously nowhere and everywhere. Watching, calculating, evaluating. First contact would not be what anyone expected. The mountain continued its silent vigil, waiting,